Good morning, sixth graders. Happy Wednesday. Today we had a lot of discussion and sharing time, so we did a lot of our class live today. But for the part we did not do live, we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, our book talk today is called Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. Also, you can see this book talk link right here. If you click that, that will lead you to all the book talks that we've had so far this year. Okay, so Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper is about an 11-year-old girl named Melody who is super smart, funny, just an all-around great girl. She also has cerebral palsy, which is a condition where your muscles don't work necessarily the way they should, and she's in a wheelchair. She also has trouble talking and things like that. She can't communicate with a letterboard, like a magnetic letterboard on her tray. But no one knows just how amazing she is. So this book is about her letting the world know what she's capable of. If you liked Wonder, this would be a really good book for you. I absolutely loved it. Every student I know that's read it has loved it. So again, this is a really good book, Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. All right. So now we are going to continue on with our reading and our study of All Summer in a Day. Remember, we're thinking about two things while we're reading All Summer in a Day. We're thinking about what makes a good story, and we're thinking about the theme of change. Okay, so this is part of like what makes a good story. When you write a story, you need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's what really makes it a story. Also, the other thing that really seems to make it a story is having a problem. You have to have a problem in your story or there's nothing really to talk about. Okay, and then I'm actually going to come back there. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's what we're just thinking of. Yesterday we read half of the story and kind of got to like the middle. The problem, we can see the real problem starting to come up a little bit, but part of the problem is that the sun never shines, okay, and it rains all the time. So I'm going to go over here to the story. Like I did yesterday, I'm going to leave it on the screen so that you can follow along here, but you also do have the link to the PDF in that slideshow. So if you go to the All Summer in a Day slideshow in your weekly planner, you can see this yourself too. So we left off yesterday. We finished page 3. Okay. And where we last left off, all of the boys, or not all the boys, all the kids that lived here, except for one named Margot, and that's how you say her name, even though there's a T on the end, it's silent. They had all grown up on this planet, Venus, so they've never known anything but rain. They don't remember ever seeing the sun. Margot just moved here within like the last, I think it was 2 years from Earth. So she remembers the sun, okay? And she knows how bad she wants to see it. All right. So, but they're kind of mean to her. They don't really understand her. Where we last left, Margot's staring at the window waiting for the sun to come out, and a mean boy is like saying, no, it's not going to come out. And the last thing we read yesterday pretty much was, hey, everyone, let's put her in the closet before the teacher comes. Okay, so now they surged about her, caught her up and bore her, protesting, then pleading, then crying, back into a tunnel, a room, a closet, where they slammed and locked the door. They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble from her beating and throwing herself against it. They heard her muffled cries. Then, smiling, they turned and went out back down the tunnel just as the teacher arrived. Ready, children? She glanced at her watch. Yes, said everyone. Are we all here? Yes. The rain slackened still more. They crowded to the huge door. The rain stopped. It was as if, in the midst of a film concerning an avalanche, a tornado, a hurricane, a volcanic eruption, something had first gone wrong with the sound apparatus, thus muffling and finally cutting off all noise, all of the blast and repercussions and thunders, and then, second, ripped the film from the projector and inserted in its place a peaceful tropical slide, which did not move or tremor. The world ground to a standstill. The silence was so immense and unbelievable that you felt your ears had been stuffed or you had lost your hearing altogether. The children put their hands to their ears. They stood apart. The door slid back, and the smell of the silent, waiting world came to them. The sun came out. It was the color of flaming bronze, and it was very large. And the sky around it was a blazing blue tile color. And the jungle burned with sunlight as the children, released from their spell, rushed out, yelling into the springtime. Now, don't go too far, yelled the teacher after them. You've only 2 hours, you know. You wouldn't want to get caught out. But they were running and turning their faces up to the sky and feeling the sun on their cheeks like a warm iron. They were taking off their jackets and letting the sun burn their arms. Oh, it's better than the sun lamps, isn't it? Much, much better. They stopped raining and stood in the great jungle that covered Venus, that grew and never stopped growing, tumultuously, even as you watched it. It was a nest of octopi, clustering up great arms of flesh-like weed, wavering, flowering this brief spring. It was the color of rubber and ash, this jungle from the many years without sun. It was the color of stones and white cheeses and ink. It was the color of the moon. The children lay out, laughing on the jungle mattress, and hearing it sigh and squeak under them, resilient and alive. They ran among the trees. They slipped and fell. They pushed each other. They played hide and seek and tag. But most of all, they squinted at the sun until the tears ran down their faces. They put their hands up to that yellowness and that amazing blueness, and they breathed of the fresh, fresh air and listened to the silence which suspended them in a blessed sea of no sound and no motion. They looked at everything and savored everything. Then wildly, like animals escaped from their caves, they ran in shouting circles. They ran for an hour and did not stop running. And then, in the midst of their running, one of the girls wailed. Everyone stopped. The girl standing in the open held out her hand. "Oh, look, look," she said, trembling. They came slowly to look at her opened palm. In the center of it, cupped and huge, was a single raindrop. She began to cry, looking at it, then glanced quietly at the sky. Oh, oh. A few cold drops fell on their noses and their cheeks and their mouths. The sun faded behind a stir of mist. A wind blew around them. They turned and started to walk back toward the underground house, their hands at their sides, their smiles vanishing away. A boom of thunder startled them, and like leaves before a new hurricane, they tumbled upon each other and ran. Lightning struck 10 miles away, 5 miles away, a mile, a half a mile. The sun darkened into midnight in a flash. They stood in the doorway of the underground for a moment until it was raining hard. Then they closed the door and heard the gigantic sound of the rain falling in tons and avalanches. Will it be 7 more years? Yes, 7. Then one of them gave a little cry. Margot! What? She's still in the closet where we locked her. Margot. They stood as if someone had driven them like so many stakes into the floor. They looked at each other and they looked away. They glanced out at the world that was raining now and raining steadily. They could not meet each other's glances. Their faces were solemn and pale. They looked at their hands and feet, their faces down. Margot, one of the girls said. Well, no one moved. Go on. whispered the girl. They walked slowly down the hall in the sound of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room in the sound of the storm and thunder, lightning on their faces, blue and terrible. They walked over to the closet door slowly and stood by it. Behind the closet door was only silence. They unlocked the door even more slowly and let Margot out. All right, so that is the end of the story. I'm going to go back over here to the beginning, the middle, and the end. I want you in your notes, and I forgot to say this yesterday, I'm sorry. I want you to take these story elements. This is the third slide down, and I want you to copy these notes into your notebooks, okay? And then right after that, I want you to copy these notes into your notebooks. You can just kind of make it a diagram like this. You can sketch note it, but basically you're just showing the plot, the basic elements in a story. The next thing I want you to do is part 2 discussion questions. There are 3. How do the children react to the change in the weather? How do you think the children feel as they realize that Margot is still locked in the cage? And what will happen now? Okay, so I want you to, we're going to discuss these in class tomorrow. So I want you to kind of jot down your answers and things like that so that we can talk about them. And then that's for tomorrow. All right, so that is the story for today. Again, we are going to talk about these questions tomorrow, just like we talked about the part 1 discussion questions today. Okay, thanks guys. That's the day right here. Please go and make sure you do your 25 minutes of independent reading.